The Orange Zone, sponsored by Billy Whitaker Cars and Trucks.
Hello, everybody. We are coming to you with a Week 2 win, and we are very excited about it. Syracuse took down Georgia Tech 31-28. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston, and it is safe to say that everybody in that building today was pretty fired up.
I think everybody in that building left with a smile on their face. Syracuse gets their first signature win, really in the Fran Brown era as a whole. They knock off number 23, Georgia Tech. And this was a game that Syracuse really controlled from start to finish, except maybe a little bit in that last third, fourth quarter, let a little bit slip, but this was a game that Syracuse was winning from the outset.
We'll get to that. I think it's important to note the excitement for this game was building all week, but even today, it started at 9:45 a.m. when Fran Brown has his revamped quad walk. Included in that walk today was Dwight Freeney, who was having his jersey retired at halftime. So the fact that Coach Brown, because I'm assuming it was Coach Brown, even asked Freeney to be a part of that, I felt like set everything off on the right foot.
Absolutely. It was a rainy day in Syracuse, but the fans still showed out. Early game, noon kick, but 9:45 a.m. fans were out there on the quad to welcome in Freeney, to welcome in the Orange to Week 2, and just really got things off on a really good note.
Correct. So then we get in, and just to kind of start, I think we'll take you through it sort of as things took place and went down. First drive of the game is where the scoring started, and it was Kyle McCord to Trevor Pena. That connection was visible all day long. Syracuse went up 7-0 to start this game.
Yeah, Kyle McCord to Trevor Pena has been the most pleasant surprise of the first 2 weeks of football, I think, for Syracuse fans, right? Everybody expected it to be Oronde Gadsden, that top target, but you know who else expected it to be Oronde Gadsden? Opponents. So Syracuse took matters into their own hands and decided, hey, when Gadsden is double team, triple team, we need someone else. It's Trevor Pena, and he's really been able to separate himself.
Mind you, Gadsden has been as advertised. Pena, 2 touchdowns today. Gadsden, 2 touchdowns today. But there were multiple receivers who got a touch, who got the ball at one point or another. I think this was a game where, again, you're seeing just the versatility of this offense centered around Kyle McCord, who's great.
Yeah, Kyle McCord. I mean, I know it's only 2 games here, but McCord has just exceeded expectations. 381 yards today, 4 touchdowns. I mean, he even ran the ball. We saw a little bit of Little League Kyle. He had the longest rushing play of his career there in the third or fourth quarter. But yeah, Kyle McCord has been everything as advertised, if not more. Forget about sending a bottle of champagne to Ryan Day. We need maybe a crate. Maybe we should build him a wine cellar. I don't know, but we need to give him something.
There need to be gifts because everything that was happening today was truly unprecedented. I think there was a group of people, I'm not sure how large it was, but there was definitely a group of people on Twitter, on the socials, who were saying that Kyle McCord was only great because he was at Ohio State. It's not true.
Nope.
I mean, we're both here to tell you that that's just false. I'll just tell you guys some of his numbers from today. Completed 32 of 46 passes, threw for 381 yards, averaging 8.3 yards, and he threw for 4 touchdowns. I mean, this is an unreal situation that we're seeing, and it's been 2 games, and it's been a back-to-back 10 out of 10 performance.
My confidence in Kyle McCord, when the Orange are on third down, trying to convert on third down, my confidence in Kyle McCord is through the roof. You know that meme, Meek Mill? I used to pray for times like this, dreams and nightmares, okay? If you're from Philadelphia.
Who doesn't know that?
Literally, I used to pray for times like this, where in Syracuse football would be able to convert on third down on a consistent basis. Not only third down, fourth down. I believe they had success on fourth down today as well. So McCord was cooking. The offense was rolling. I don't think, though, the offense was who anyone was worried about going into this game. All the talk this week ahead of this matchup was Georgia Tech, right? They beat Florida State because they ran the ball down their throat. How are you going to stop the run without Marlowe Wax, linebacker injured? How are you going to stop the run? Syracuse stopped the run. They held Georgia Tech to only 112 yards rushing.
And that was the other thing. I will say, again, that was the big question. Well, who's going to step up in his absence? And I think the answer to that, as you saw sort of play out today, was multiple people. There were a couple of guys in that defense who were doing what they needed to do, but to your point, a couple of really big stops, even on fourth down. It was impressive. So again, at that point, when we get to halftime, Syracuse is leading 21-14. Things get a little dicey in the end. Third quarter, the only scoring is from Syracuse. It's a 33-yard field goal from Brady Denneberg. That brings us to the fourth quarter, where, I'm not sure exactly how many minutes left, but a couple minutes left to play. I think under 10.
It was like 5.
Okay. because Georgia Tech scores a touchdown. And then we get a situation where they recover the onside kick.
Yeah.
And honestly, I felt like the entire place went silent for a moment.
Yeah.
And Syracuse paid the price because then the Yellow Jackets just run it down Syracuse's throats again, score another touchdown. So they actually won the scoring battle in the fourth quarter. It got as close as 31-28, but Syracuse held them off to their credit, and they got the win.
Yeah, I think, like you said, fans kind of wish this could have been put to bed a little earlier in this game because this was not a game that, at least in my opinion, on the field, you ever felt like Georgia Tech was coming back to win. It felt like Syracuse was in control of this game from start to finish. Yep. However, that fourth quarter, you wish that special teams would have held up. You would have been able to put this one to bed a little earlier. If there is an area of concern for Syracuse in this game, I would say it's special teams. You saw the blocked field goal. You saw the onside kick. Little bit of special teams problems. But if I'm sitting here talking about special teams on week 2, that's just a good sign to begin with.
Okay, so there's room to improve on special teams. But honestly, I think that a lot of Syracuse fans would take that because if you remember, like the betting odds had Georgia Tech as a 3-point favorite. It wasn't even close to that.
But Vegas always knows. I looked up at that scoreboard in the second half when Syracuse was up by about 2 touchdowns, and I was like, okay, we're really, Georgia Tech was favored in this game by 3 points. Vegas always knows it's a 3-point spread. Syracuse wins by 3 points. Of course, they're on the other side of that, but how do they always know?
Like, how do they know?
I don't know.
We can't get into it.
Not right now. Another big storyline to kind of wrap up this game, because I think it really came out in the post-game press conference. We were hearing rumblings about it all week, but I don't think fans really understood just how personal this win was to Fran Brown until he talked after the game. He was discussing, Georgia Tech head coach Brent Key made some comments earlier in the week about insinuating that Syracuse was... I don't know if he meant it at Syracuse or not, but Fran Brown decided that he meant it at Syracuse. Brown said multiple times that he took it personally. Key saying that all Georgia Tech had to do this week was come up there and be a more physical team. He said we don't have to worry about the X's and O's. He literally said we don't have to worry about plays, schemes, all of that. We just have to be tougher, a more physical team. Fran Brown didn't like to hear that. He was upset. He said it bothered him all week. And you know what? It worked. It was some bulletin board material that the Orange needed. Tight end Aranda Gadsden got up there after the game and said that Fran Brown literally played the clip of Key saying that all week at practice to motivate them.
Everywhere. Like, literally, there was someone who had asked, where was he playing this? Literally, Gadsden said, everywhere. Also, in a way, like, how could you not think that's going to happen for a guy whose acronym is DART and the T stands for tough? He's going to take that personally. And listen, at the same time, you then heard Kyle McCord speaking, and in a way, I actually felt like it was sort of a different tune. McCord was very much so, hey, we focused on us. This week, I think that, and this is kind of what he was saying, is, I think that as long as there's less mistakes being made, he said that he thinks that they have the pieces and the raw talent to go out there and win. And today is a good example of that. I'll also say it does put Syracuse in a position to potentially, likely even, go 4-0 now with the 2 games that they have stacked up. They have Stanford and Holy Cross. There's also a bye week. That's a good position to be in so that when you are going into UNLV in their 5th game, as you mentioned earlier, maybe that is the time where now they're a ranked team.
Yeah, I think I think maybe Syracuse gets a couple votes this week, right? Georgia Tech kind of at the back end, number 23. I would assume Georgia Tech is going to fall out of the rank now. Syracuse might get a couple votes this week, but they have a bye week, which if I'm Syracuse, I'm kind of unhappy about that early bye week now because you have so much momentum. I bet those players don't want a week off. Regardless, you have the bye week, you have Stanford, Holy Cross. Even if you're 4-0 and your biggest win is Georgia Tech, I don't make those decisions, but I don't think Syracuse is ranked until potentially they go into UNLV, get a road win, then you're 5-0. I think that's where they really enter that national conversation.
Just going to make that our question of the week. Do you think there's any chance that Syracuse could be ranked now, or you think it could only come in that potentially week 5 situation if they are 4-0? Just curious about people's thoughts on that. Final thoughts, and we'll wrap it up.
Final thoughts. Look, the physicality thing that we're talking about with the Georgia Tech, adding fuel to that fire, Syracuse knew that after week 1, right? You have Marlowe go down, but the run defense wasn't good. They knew that coming into this week, they had to tackle better, they had to stop the run, and they had to be a more physical team. And so Brent Key on Tuesday, whatever he said, adding that fuel to that fire, quite frankly, it worked.
And mind you, this is going to be my final thought, kind of 2 things. I know, as we mentioned, that it might not have explicitly been those words from Brent Key, but I don't actually think that it was untrue to say that Syracuse did have to be a little bit more physical. There's a reason why the conversation was, hey, they needed to tackle a little bit better. And my final thought will be that defense today, even without Marlo Wax, like they looked crazy, and I mean that in the best possible way. I actually mean that as a compliment. Like Justin Barron, I mean, these guys were just fired up, and you could see it on every single good defensive play. That's the kind of defense that you want to see, and you can tell that there's a certain kind of energy in practice that's leading to this on game day. So thank you everybody so much for sticking with us. Our next episode will drop on Wednesday, which is when our normal episodes drop, and you can find us here, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, or any social media. Otherwise, we'll see you back here on Wednesday.